This episode is brought to you by Hostfully. Using Hostfully, you can create a free digital guidebook for your listing so that you can save time creating a professional experience for every guest that comes and visits your spot. Learn more at hostfully.com.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
What's up, everybody? Episode 297 of Get Paid for Your Pad. And today we're not going to talk about how to get paid for your pad. We're going to talk about how to get paid for your boat. Because I'm talking to Nicole Young, and she rents out 2 houseboats in Norfolk, Virginia. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jasper. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
I'm excited too, because I don't think I've ever talked to a host who's renting out boats. And so I am really excited. I'm really eager to learn about what are the differences between renting out a boat versus a home. When you think about Airbnb, of course, you think about homes and rooms and apartments and stuff. But there's a lot of other things that you can rent out. Anything where you can sleep, I guess you can put on Airbnb. So I would love to hear your story. How did you get those boats in the first place, and what's your experience been so far?
Okay, sure. Well, I bought the first one. It's a 37-foot holiday mansion in November of 2016. And then I did not me, but the marine contractors that I hired to do the work to get it up to speed. I spoke with the marina beforehand, told them what I wanted to do, and they were fine with it. And so by March of 2017, it was open. And then it has just been booked out from someone who just came for a month because they were in Iowa. And so they had a job. The Hampton Roads area has a lot of military, a lot of transient people. So it was great because the gentleman was from a landlocked area. And so being on the water, was fantastic for him. And then the second one, which is a 50-foot Gibson, I actually just bought that in June. And then by July 4th weekend, it was open. So, so many kudos to my boyfriend helping out with that and just getting the repairs and stuff done. It wasn't as much work as the smaller one, just because I had been doing that one for a while. And so I kind of knew what direction I wanted to go with this. And so that is kind of how the houseboats happened. And I stayed in a houseboat in Richmond, and I always wanted to be an innkeeper and own houseboats. And so when I put the idea together, I wasn't sure if it would catch on. I didn't do, any surveys or any focus groups or, try to really do the research. I just knew that it was something that I liked, and I was hoping that other people liked it as well. So.
And it seems like a lot of people like it because you're pretty much fully booked, aren't you?
Yeah. It's been wonderful. I've had a lot of people come on board, and not just through Airbnb, which has been wonderful, especially for the bigger boat because it sleeps 6 instead of the smaller one, which sleeps 2. But I've also to try to get the weekdays filled, because I was having a hard time doing that when I first got the smaller boat in 2017. So I had my best friend, Shia, who was maybe you should do a date night on the houseboat. And I was like, that's a terrific idea. And so I started doing a date night, and it's 3 hours. And so I've been able to put more people on the boat during the weekday. And Groupon has actually attracted a lot of local people too. So that's been great. And I've gotten a lot of traction from that. And then Airbnb, that always will fill in the weekdays, the holidays, any sort of events that are going on, down here. So
I'd love to learn more about your date night concept. So is this an experience that you put on Airbnb?
Well, at one point I had done that, but it was actually through Groupon, which I did like the date night and the overnight. And so the date night is like 3 hours, and a couple or an individual will come on board the boat, and it's a sensorial experience, and it really involves like being in relationship with one another and being able to, like, the internet's there, but there isn't any TV. So really people have to communicate with one another or just enjoy, time with themselves. And my whole concept behind that is because the names of the boats are, one's named, the smaller one, for my grandmother. The bigger one is named for my grandfather. And so for me, I always wanted to make the houseboats feel like home, like how they made me feel when I would go to their home when I was younger. And so I wanted to have that same experience of like coziness and, being in relationship with one another. And so that's how the date nights really formed, because you get like something to drink and you get a small appetizer board, and then you just get time to be on there with one another, and I've had individuals come on there, and some people, they'll like paint, or they'll listen to music, or, eat or drink something. And so it's a combination of a lot of different things, but that was always like, the reason behind, and, how the concept kind of developed into what it is now.
And are you getting a lot of traction with that on Groupon?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of traction with that. And even when I did the Airbnb experience, I got traction with that as well, because people were just, they just wanted to come aboard. And I was like, well, if I'm doing overnights back to back, I have like a 2-hour clean time, and I need that whole time, to clean. And so I didn't want to try to have like people in there for an hour, but I was like, hey, if I set a certain number of days aside, then I can do date nights. And so I can typically, like during a week, I can do like 6 to 8 date nights. They used to be about 7 hours long. And then I started doing some research, and I was like, well, when people are out on dates, if they go to like a dinner and a movie, that'd be like 3 to 4 hours. It wouldn't be like 7 hours. And I was trying to figure out how to utilize the boat, in a better way. And with the bigger boat, I don't do date nights on that one just because, of the size of it, and it sleeps 6. And so I was like, I'd much rather have an overnight on there. Just monetarily speaking, it doesn't make any sense to do the date nights on there. So at this point, I keep that one for only overnights. And then with the smaller one, it's overnights and date nights.
Could you talk us through how does it work using Groupon for these things? People buy the Groupon, and then they contact you and you tell them which dates are available?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I link the Airbnb calendar through Groupon. And so sometimes people look, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people return the Groupons because they're just like, I wanted something for tonight. And sometimes I'm able to successfully, they said they wanted a date night, but I'm like, that's not available. So if you want to, there's another houseboat, but it's for overnights only. So I'm able to convert them and just use the difference between what the date night is, which is like $49, $50, and turn into an overnight on the bigger houseboat, which is like $140 to like $185. And now since we're like in the low part of the season, it's like $120 to like $175. So it's still, making more money. And so that's, since I just, bought the other one, that's what I'm in the business of doing, is really to try to, provide a wonderful experience for guests, and then also build up the clientele so I can have people that, will come back. And then hopefully, if they're on the smaller boat, if they're on the bigger boat, sometimes, they're like, hey, I can bring back my family, or I can do this next year. Because, it's been wonderful, because even though I just opened up the bigger houseboat July 4th weekend, I've already had a couple people that have returned, since then. So it's been really great.
That's a really smart idea, to do these date nights. so you can use your boats more efficiently and add some extra income. I guess people can do that with homes as well. If you have like a nice balcony or something like that. What advice do you have for, let's say somebody's listening and thinking, hey, I've got a really nice balcony. That could be, that could be a good spot for people that want to go on a date, like a romantic place or something where you can see the sunset or something like that. So what would be the process for somebody to start doing this using Groupon?
So what you do is you contact Groupon, and when I first started doing it, I had someone that I would communicate with, but now it's like you have to go through like Groupon merchant support. And what they will do is they'll be like, yay or nay with the idea. I brought a lot of ideas to them, and many of them they've said nay to. But with like a date night or something like that, you tell them like, hey, I have this space and this is what I want to do with it. And then if they approve it, then it could go live, in a couple of days. And then you could, get people ringing your phone. Because what I've connected, like all of this, like date nights, overnights, people wanting an experience, is that like, you don't really have to offer something that's so out of the box, but you just have to like offer something that provides people with like space and time. And so if you do like those small touches, like how you talk about, in the podcast all the time, something to drink, something to eat, like a little Polaroid camera that they can take pictures with. Oh, you can use this hashtag, and, then on my stories on Instagram, like I'll tag them, little things that provide like a memory, like when they're 80 years old and they're sitting in the bed and they can be like, remember when we went on this boat together? Or they can think to themselves, individually, like, oh, remember when we did this? And so doing things that kind of like connect the dots to their memories, because once you get somebody and they've created a memory in your space. I had a girl who I bought the bigger boat from. She actually stayed on the houseboat, on the smaller one. She bought a houseboat after that. It was on the same pier as mine. And then she met a guy while she was on the houseboat, and they ended up married. They lived on the houseboat. They're having a baby. I bought the houseboat from them, the bigger one. And she always talks about how, the Loiselane like brought love to her, and how all these things have happened. And I've had people that have been on and a person got engaged and now they're having a baby, and they come back and they take pictures. And I also do photo shoots on both boats as well. And so it's just like things to create memories for people. Like I feel like I'm more so in that business, like creating memories with my space. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but
that makes a little sense.
Okay.
Absolutely. And now that the short-term rental space is getting more competitive, I think it's all about experiences. That's what it's all about. So I think I love what you're doing. It's amazing. It's a really smart idea.
Hi, this is Margot, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of HostPhilly.com. You may know about us for our digital guidebooks, but did you know that we also provide property management software? If you have more than 10 properties, you might be a perfect fit. We help you automate tasks, keep track of all your property details, communicate with your guests with a unified inbox, and increase your distribution across booking platforms, including Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com. Please take a minute to see how we might be able to help you at HostPhilly.com.
Let's go back to the Airbnb business that you have with these two boats.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to visualize, because it's really interesting. There's lots of regulations popping up everywhere. I'm even thinking about my own city, Barcelona, where it's almost impossible to get a license to Airbnb. But I wonder if I can buy a boat and rent it out. I'm sure there's no official regulations that prohibit people from renting out boats on Airbnb, because there's probably not a lot of people doing it. So I'm trying to think, like, first of all, like, can you move these boats?
So you can move them. One of them, the outdrives are shot, so I just have to dry dock it and fix those. And then for the other one, it can go out on the water just with like liability. I don't like to do that because, Virginia, with us having like the bay and the ocean and the Coast Guard and Harbor Patrol, and it's a lot. So since I've been doing it, like, it's funny that you speak of regulations, because I actually moved out of my marina because they didn't want to do short-term rentals anymore. And a lot of places don't want to do short-term rentals at the marina because they're just like, there are people coming in here that we don't know and so on and so forth. And so I moved to a private dock with someone who is actually doing Airbnb on this property. That company actually has like many rentals that they do. And most of the properties like on the water. And so it's been great until different organizations within the city of Norfolk, they're like, it's not zoned properly and, this and that, and the water treatment system in the houseboats, because you have to have like for Norfolk, like even though I have this treatment system that was put in for waste, like you have to have it pumped out instead of it going into the water, even though it's treated. And so I had to like get that fixed recently. And so, it's the ebbs and flows of it. I feel like you're always going to come up against something. And so just trying to like navigate that. I'm actually speaking with a council member tomorrow to address this, because I've always tried to do things, above board, and like I've never misled anybody with what I'm doing. But at the same time, it's just like, for small businesses and for people who would like to make this their livelihood, and they're, it's not like, I'm doing a disservice, to the community. And so I feel like there should be more options for people who can do this. And I get like the bed and breakfast, they're like, hey, we want you guys to pay the same amount of money. But I mean, or even the hotels, but it's just like, I don't feel like people who are doing Airbnb out of their primary residence or out of somewhere that they bought, like they have the number of people coming, that like a hotel or a bed and breakfast would have. And so for me, I just kind of deal with it as it comes. But technically though, like here, and I've been told this, that like zoning doesn't have any jurisdiction over the water, but with a dock being attached to a property, that's when the issues come in, and having enough parking, having enough trash cans, and, so on and so forth.
Interesting. So that was the first thing I was going to ask you, actually, because most of the marinas, they're fenced off, right? And so,
yeah,
when you have a boat, like, you probably know the security guard. And so, but if you constantly have people coming in and out, I imagine there could be a problem. So you found a private dock where you can, and then did you move your boat there?
Yeah, I moved both of them there. I found someone locally who could just do that. And so that was easy. Like the dock was in good shape and I was able to tie it up. So I haven't had any issues there. I haven't had any issues until, parts of the city government got involved. And so I'm working through those right now. And I've also found another spot that they may go. But, I would like to find the boat's forever home. I don't want to have to keep on moving them because it is expensive. And then, you have to tell your guests like, oh, it's here now. And, people ask questions, which makes total sense. And you don't want to be like, oh, hey, like, due to, issues with the city government. Because when I first had an issue like with the waste treatment system on board, I had to tell people that they couldn't go to the bathroom on board the boat. And so, it was like, because if you go to the bathroom and anyone sees, then they could like find me and I have to get this fixed. And, it's a lot for people who are just trying to come on, do a date night or an overnight, and then be on their merry way. Like they shouldn't have to be bogged down with the fact of like, can't use the restroom, hope you don't drink anything or, so that was the only unfortunate part.
And you're saying you're talking to the local authorities now. Did they reach out to you about this boat? Did they find out? Or did you reach out to them?
It was a little bit of both, to be honest, because they had said that they had been looking into this for a while, but I had contacted them numerous times to make sure that everything was good to go. And it has been and this like one of the big things about neighbors, complaining about this. And I've spoken to like a civic league that we have in Norfolk about this. And one of the people on the league is a neighbor, kind of far down, but still a neighbor. And so I think that people, they're just uncomfortable with it, and I am not really sure why, when it doesn't seem to me like the boats don't affect them, and they'll give me like kudos about them, but at the same time they want it stopped. And so I'm like, well, it's up to, the people that are above me and above the neighbors. But it seems like a lot of the zoning stuff is really directed with how the people around you feel. And it's not so much with like what is actually happening. So
Interesting. Does it make sense from an investing perspective? Like if you look at like how much you paid for the boats and how much the return is, like this, if you look back, like, is it something that you would recommend to other people?
yeah, I would definitely recommend this. I think that with like when I look at Airbnb and all the unique spaces, there aren't a lot of them. And I would say that the market isn't really flooded. And so I would tell people to always do this. I've actually done a little bit of consulting with people who wanted to do this. And I'm always happy to speak with people that are thinking about this because I think it's such a good idea. It's not as costly as people would think it is. I bought the first one for like $5,000. And then I had to, of course, like pour money into it because the space that I envisioned was like light and bright, and it needed, it needed to be painted. It needed like flooring. It needed a bathroom. I mean, just on and on. Definitely like any property you would have, you have to keep the disposable income because there are things that do just naturally go wrong with a vessel being on the water and things that you need fixed quick. And the people and the person that works on my boat, he's a marine contractor and a marine surveyor. He's wonderful. And because he's like 85 an hour. So I need to have money to be able to pay him because he comes and he does the work and it's fast and it's really good. And so, and when you're turning over a rental, like you just need somebody to be like, oh, hey, can you get out here? And then they're there. And so, you have to pay for that. But I mean, definitely, when I look at like what my expenditures are and when I look at how much I'm making, it definitely makes sense. And even, when I'm in different places and, if I'm posting on Instagram, like people just connecting, they see it as a space and somewhere where they can just, come and do what they want to do. So that's like anything from the photo shoots to the date nights, the overnights, to like, someone contacted me this week about like doing a business meeting. And so, all of those different things. And then since I'm attached to the property, when people are there, they're just like, oh, like, what are these houseboats? And so I get even more people that are trying to, figure out what this is and, hey, like, I'd like to come on board, next time that I'm back here, rent out this and then have one of the spaces in the home. And so I would highly encourage, people to look into that. Of course, first, look into the Airbnb laws. But if you're at a private dock and you have great neighbors, that would definitely be something that would be great.
That's awesome. And then if you have problems with the local authorities, you could just move it to a different area.
Right.
You can't do that with a house. I mean, if you buy a house and, they prohibit Airbnb hosting, then you're kind of done.
Right.
That's awesome. And it's really interesting. Do you know any other people that are doing this, or do you know any people that, because you have houseboats, but you could also have a boat that is a sailing boat that has a bed. I've seen some of them in Miami, actually.
Yes, I actually had a guy, and I had helped him with his listing, and he had a smaller boat than mine, and so he was renting that out. He was like right next to me at one point, and so it was working for him. He got a little bit, less because it was a smaller boat, but he liked doing it as well. I think that it all depends on like what direction you want to go with it, because some people, it's like you're looking at it like, a very stylized space, but then some people are just like, this is just where I'm sleeping and I'm just staying on a boat. And so it ebbs and flows like between that, because like for the bigger houseboat, it sleeps 6. There's like, I keep, the fridge stocked and different coffees and cereal and jams and creamers and this and that and the other. But for some people, it'd be like, this is just a space for you to sleep. Like it's not, not fully decked out, but it doesn't have all of, the amenities. But I always take note of what like guests comment on and what they really take a liking to, because even like it has 2 outdoor spaces. And so with one of them, I added like fishing poles. And so some people just really enjoy those fishing poles. And there's a place where you can get bait like about 5 minutes down the road. And so it's, it's a part of their whole experience. And also like on the back outdoor space, you can look and you can see the naval base. And for some people, it creates like a memory for them because they once served in the military or they know someone who like served there, So I would say that it ebbs and flows between like people who just want somewhere to sleep and sell like a sailboat or a smaller boat, and then somewhere where people want to have like an experience and you want them to come back to it. You want them to tell people, that sort of thing.
I was going through some of your reviews, and it seems like people just love the boat. A lot of people saying that they sleep really well because you're on the water, so it wiggles a little bit, and there's the fresh ocean breeze and the space that you have around you. So yeah, I'm reading some of your reviews, and they're pretty amazing.
Thank you. People have been really kind. I've been like very thankful, very, very thankful.
Awesome, Nicole. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I think it's very inspirational. I'm really curious about all this, and I'm definitely going to look into the situation back in Barcelona, because I'm just thinking, like when you have, for example, a sailing boat that you can sleep on. I mean, those things are probably in the harbor like 95, if not more, % of the time. Right. And so they're, you know what I mean? Like it's like an asset that you just can't use it very often, like unless you quit your job and start sail around the world or something like that. But I think for most people, they'd probably buy a boat and then they think, oh yeah, I'm going to go sailing every weekend. And then the first couple months they may do that. But eventually I think the boats just end up spending most of their time in the harbor, right? And so this could be a great way to actually make it affordable or make it worth it for people to get a boat if they can rent it out on Airbnb while it's sitting idle in the harbor. Yeah,
definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story. It was great, and good luck with everything. And I would love to hear any updates on your talks with the local authorities. So yeah, please let me know if there's any developments.
I definitely will. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time as well. And to the listeners, thanks for listening. And of course, next week there will be another episode. So hope to see you then.
Get paid for your pet. Get paid for your pet. Get paid for your pet.